Hello, people. I've got my lovely dungeon master for one of the games I'm in for D&D, May here, and she's gonna tell us a little bit about she's been playing for. Do you want to reveal how many years you've been playing role-playing games for?
Uh, so for those who are up with Dungeons and Dragons lore, I started Dungeons and Dragons with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, so there was I think it's still going, but there was this app called Meetup, and I found
Hmm.
out about fashion. So I got into like an Adventurers League session, which is basically
Hmm.
like a series of um ongoing but one-off campaigns, and that was the people who were doing that, they were so good. But it was basically, it was run from the top of a in Richmond. It was a St John's ambulance headquarters, and like every other Friday night, we basically took it over, and it was a big night when we had 12 people there. It's Yeah, so the impact of Critical Role, and I think we have to say, in terms of actual play, it was Critical Role that was light and day, and obviously it was a slow burn for that to really get started, but certainly by 2017, 2018, that was certainly picking up momentum. And by the time I did like I had like a lot of life changes, so I couldn't carry on with the Friday night thing, but by the time I was going to my last session there were like 50 people, and we're struggling to fit everybody in.
Some of the research I've been doing shows that like the sale of D&D manuals from like the official manuals like increased by like 50%. I feel like that is reflective of really a pretty small portion of how much the increase to actual players is, because I think
Yeah,
so many people are getting it online, or they're showing up and doing one-offs where they're not buying all the materials, but they're playing a lot. Um,
yeah, yeah, most character sheets were pen and paper, they weren't online. um
since actual play podcasts, how do you think the diversity of the community has changed?
Well, I think one of the things I've definitely noticed is the age of the people playing. So it certainly used to be this pretty hardcore group of people who basically grown up with it or have been exposed to it. So there'll be people who are in their 30s or in their 40s. Yeah. Now most people that in my groups are somewhere in their 20s, which is just great. But it's so certainly that this, I think that demographic has certainly changed, and I think the other one that we have to talk about is that the gender mix has changed, and there's a lot more women playing D&D than there were 10 years ago. I mean, I would say before it would have been like 80-20, 90-10. Now it's pretty much even. So that's been a huge thing. And I think the number of queer people playing D&D is hugely increased as well. And again, I think that seeing that D&D could be done, seeing the examples of the actual play. So yeah, it's changed a lot. Many more people, many more women, many more queer people. It was, as someone who was watching it, it was like going, "Oh, I can do that." That's not sure. There's a layer of te technical wizardry that's on top of that I can't do, but I can draw maps. Yeah, I can tell stories, and I can draw, I can design encounters. It was approachable and attainable. It wasn't forbidding. It wasn't a glossy show that seemed to be impossibly out of reach.
Just sort of inspirational in a way about like,
Oh, yeah, very much inspirational, and inspirational, obviously, in terms of the way that the characters were portrayed by the cast of Critical
Mhm.
Role. It was entirely possible to do spontaneous but very meaningful role play. Like this whole concept of like that you could adopt the mannerisms of a character and stay in character, and they could have a consistent accent. That was that hadn't been the D&D that I'd experienced up to that day.
Mhm,
So seeing that validated in
mhm.
such a spectacular way was a revelation.
I mean, I think it's uncontestable that the way Critical Role or a lot of the Dimension 20, it's like for me, it's like watching a television show. It's a scripted narrative, but it's an unscripted narrative. It's very exciting to watch that, and it's very exciting to then play that. Like we've had sessions in our games where we're completely in character, telling a story, and I'm sitting there imagining it in thing, and it really is like that sort of make believe that you have when you're a little kid, where you're like, it's very real for you and sort of existing in this fantasy world with your friends that
Yeah.
I think it's very hard to capture as an adult. Would you agree that it's like an artistic? I mean, you come up with really beautiful stories for us and like whole worlds. You came up with that. May came up with recently in a session. One of our characters wanted to buy some specific types of magical items, and she came up with on the fly this sort of um, magical mall, super mall, that could explode and was this like sort of magical, interdimensional, wasn't really interdimensional, but it was a pocket space. It was bigger on the inside than the outside. Um,
Mhm.
and it was very, very fun and very, very cool. And we loved it.
Thank you. I'm glad you had a good time. As I think, don't think there's anything better than as a dungeon master than seeing the reaction of people laughing. Because as a DM, you're always going, "Oh, what was that like? Was it any good?" And they're going, "They're laughing, so it must be fine." Watching Matthew Mercer in action as a DM, you can tell that that the in the way that he was running those sessions, that all of those fears that I have running my little session are shared by him as well. He's just an amazing storyteller, but in terms of the care that he takes for running his game and to make sure everyone's safe.
That community aspect of it being a group of friends sort of navigating it.
Absolutely. And I think, again, and that's another aspect of the actual play, the example is like going, well, we all want to be in a version of Critical Role, and we all want to have this great group of friends who are all creative and tell these amazing stories. And I am blessed that I have that in with my group.